Welcome to Abolishing Nonsense. This is our first episode. This is Vin Vong speaking, along with my co-host Willie Costa. Say hello, Willie.
Hello, my fellow knuckle draggers.
So as you can tell, this is going to be a lot of fun as a podcast. Willie and I decided to start a podcast because a lot of folks, whether it's business partners, friends, or even clients, say they really enjoy our conversations and they learn a lot, they laugh a lot, and they just feel it's a very good conversation to have, and they want to listen more to it, right, Willie? They want to
Yeah,
just
let's
see.
let's make him regret saying that.
They want the world to hear our thoughts and ideas and our analysis. I mean, look, we do have a very good in-depth network, and we have a unique, multiple unique businesses. So gives us a unique perspective in our background. So let's make it happen. So here we are. We're starting with our first episode. We're going to be covering a lot of items. We have a lot to cover. This year has been a hell of a start to the year, I must say, right, Willie?
That's putting it politely. Yeah,
But I
let's
think,
just get our shovel and dig our way out of this hell we've made for ourselves. How's that sound?
that's going to be a hell of a shovel. We're probably going to reach the core of Earth, or
Yeah, that's
actually the
fine.
other side of the planet. Actually, we keep digging. But no, I think the economy. That's probably the biggest worry we have.
Sure.
What
And
are
of
your
course,
thoughts on the economy?
you gotta ask the Fed, do you even Phillips Curve, bro? Uh, everybody's happy with the stimulus checks, and J-Pal keeps making printer go burr. But I don't know if people understand that we're already on our way to a recovery, and you keep, just hemorrhaging cash back into the economy. What's that going to do to the value of a dollar? Last I checked, it's probably going to tank it, and we're going to probably see a really great, you know, horrible bout of inflation.
Wait, I
And
thought you loved
honestly,
Jay Powell. I thought you
yeah,
loved Jay
sure,
Powell.
he's very meme worthy, but
But
the
hold on, let's take
fact,
a step back though, real quick. What is the Phillips curve? Because I'm sure there's a lot of people, and it
sure,
won't be surprised even people in finance. No offense to anybody, but I guarantee there's a lot of people that forget about the Phillips curve.
sure. Well, basically, you have an inverse relationship between unemployment rate and inflation rate. So inflation rate goes up, unemployment rate goes down. Uh, you now have a situation where we're at pretty much zero interest rates, and we have a month and a month over month inflation rate in excess of what it should be. And what do we miss our last jobs estimate by? A million or so
I
jobs
think it's
that
like
were supposed to
1.2
happen.
million. It's
Well,
not too
well,
bad.
well, what's 200,000 between friends, right? So I just my I just have to ask myself, what good is all of this hemorrhaging of cash doing?
Hmm.
Aside from nothing. And I understand the pandemic was horrible for a lot of people, specifically everybody on the planet,
Right.
especially those who lost family members and lost their jobs, etc. This is real pain, and I'm not trying to diminish that, but at the end of the day, the Fed only has so many buttons to push,
Right.
and interest rate is one of them, and money supply is the other one. And we have to keep in mind that the US dollar, for the time being and hopefully forevermore, is the reserve currency of the world,
Right.
right?
But
The
speaking
risk
of
free
jobs,
rate.
though, yeah.
Yeah.
Just real quick. Speaking of jobs, I think one of the things we've been talking about a lot about, just personally between us, is the stimulus. I think was probably appropriate last year, one time, right, during
Sure.
COVID. But
Couple times,
you
yeah.
know, I think when we started off this year with another one, I thought that was really unnecessary. We I don't know where we're getting that money from, to be quite frank. But two, now we're creating a
Yeah,
job
that's
shortage because people are getting paid more now via the stimulus checks and to be at home than to actually get a job.
sure. And that's a good point. That's something that I've certainly heard a lot of anecdotal evidence, and there's plenty of articles about how people are hesitant to go back to work because they're making more or almost as much on their unemployment and their pandemic coverage, whatever the hell that stupid acronym is,
Yeah.
than they were working. And you can certainly make the argument that if that's the case, then you're not paying your employees enough. But at the same time, how much is too much, right?
Right.
You're not, you can't. If I'm a business owner, I can't pay everybody that works for me 100 grand a year, because number one, if everybody did that, guess what? Your poverty level is going to be 100,000 a year because price is going to go up to match. And second of all, the simple fact is that I think this is more of an insight into human nature as much as economics. Uh,
Right.
Humanity and nature in general loves to find the lowest energy state, right? What is the
Right.
minimum
That's
amount
for
of work
sure.
that I can do to accomplish my goal of,
I mean, I
you
definitely felt on the workout. That's for sure today.
know,
Yeah.
what's the least amount of work that I can do to pay my bills and
Right.
get everything done. And as long as you have a system and a mindset that encourages laziness, you are going to have hesitancy. And it is sad because a lot of people are just no longer looking for work for a variety of
Right.
reasons. Maybe they're just frustrated. Maybe they don't think there's anything to be had, or maybe they're just waiting for the next stimmy to come
Right.
down the pike. But one way or the other, I think we maybe have lost our way a bit.
I think
You know,
we've lost our way quite a bit. I mean, people joke about, not joke, but people, talk about the 1% and sorts and all that. The wealth gap and the discrepancies in pay and all. But I honestly think there's only a certain amount of people that are willing to go that extra mile. In a
sure.
world now that is about entrepreneurship. People want to create their own businesses. People want to have that lifestyle, and obviously social media, especially Instagram, has really shown a world that people really want to live in, but people don't
Right.
realize how much work it takes to get to
Right.
that point. And there is a 1%. Now don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people that inherit it or that, and they are definitely uh you know beyond lazy as well. Right, and they're just born into it.
Right.
Don't get me wrong, I totally get that, but there's a lot of people out there that are willing to work the 80, 90, 100 plus hours to get to where they need to get to what they want, right? Not to,
Of course.
and meanwhile, you have people that are, just want the minimum, like you said, but they also want the same pay. Like, how is that fair, right? So I think
Right.
that's one of the key things that people need to realize is that, you know, what you put out is what you're going to receive back in reality.
Sure.
And I think we've really lost that in the mentality of people. And not everyone, look, I want everyone to be happy. I want everyone to be comfortable, be fed and all that, right? I mean, but it's just, we live in the reality here, not utopia.
Right. And that's a good point. Let's take like Google, which I hope everybody listening is familiar with.
I
If you're
hope
familiar
so.
with the story behind Google, the founders basically dropped out of their studies, took on an enormous amount of risk. Yeah, they were successful, short story long, but how many people are willing to do that? How many people are willing to,
Hmm.
risk homelessness? You see a lot of chatter on Reddit and other boards that deal with risk investing and everything else. Everybody
Right.
likes to joke about living in a cardboard box or a Lambo, right? Those are the only two outcomes. But
Right.
the simple fact is that it is a huge risk. It's a lot of work. Most of the 1% that were not born into it didn't get to where they are by being stupid. They got to where they are by, working their asses off, doing what nobody else was willing to do. And can you argue that they got lucky? Sure, you can always argue that. But it's amazing to me that, the harder you work, the luckier you seem to be. Maybe
Yeah.
that's just correlation, maybe it's causation. And people
Right.
forget that, for every one Google, there's probably 10,000, 100,000 companies that you never heard of
Right.
because they imploded or they never moved off the paper sketch.
But
and
yep, yeah, but they're willing to take the risk, right, and fail.
but
I
they
mean,
were
that's how
willing
you
to take the
learn,
risk,
right,
right?
and learn and fail. And again,
Exactly.
I mean, I don't mean to cut you off, but
No, that's
if you
fine.
look, if you look at it, yes, every job is hard, right? There's a lot of
Right.
hard work. We're not downgrading anyone's work. It's just it's a different level when, like you said, when we get to that point, when you're willing to take that extra risk, or when you're willing to do the extra. Again, those are different situations, and when I hear people try to compare, no offense, again, flipping burgers, because that, I mean, again, that's hard work,
Hmm.
but how can you turn that into, let's say, a business, right? It's like, look, I have a skill set here, and how
Right.
can I turn that into a business, or how can I move myself up? That requires even more work, even more, and it's not only physical work but also mental. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's what we're trying to say here. And look, we know this. I mean, our families, I mean, let's make it relevant for
Oh
people,
yeah.
because a lot of people are sitting there going, oh, these
Context.
two, yeah, probably like these two are privileged. They don't know the real world. It's like,
I wish I was
let's,
privileged.
yeah, let's stop there. First off, I mean, I'm not gonna speak for you, but you're Cuban American. I'm Vietnamese American. My parents and my siblings, I mean, my siblings got here when they were what? I think 13 and 15, right? When not, no
Hmm.
English, from Vietnam. And, they worked their asses off. Yes, they all started. I mean, my mother was standing 18-hour days putting sprinklers together. My
Yep.
father was a welder and the butcher at Hatfield Meats. And then my brother and my sister, worked at, again, flipping burgers, McDonald's, serving at Red Lobster and sorts. And then you fast forward, they all decided to work together and save money and took a risk. Even
Right.
I think I was in third grade when they started a restaurant together, and then eventually a
Hmm.
grocery store and beyond. But that's a story of, that is big risk, incredible hard work. Again, you know, everyone in this world works hard, but there's just another level, right?
Right.
It's like those video games. People go like ultra mode or whatever. That's where we're talking about, and your family is similar.
Right. I mean, my family went through hell to get here. For the record, legally, right? Let's not get any
Oh,
stupid
that's a
hate
whole
mail
nother topic.
from short-sighted morons. So but we're talking about legal
Yeah, that's a whole nother.
immigration,
Yeah, and
and
my family did too, by the way.
right. But like what happened? My mother, who was quite an accomplished mathematics researcher person. I honestly don't understand what she did, because it's the math that doesn't involve numbers. It's just weird symbols, and probably conjure a demon when you're doing a proof. Who knows? But
Right,
they came here. What was the job that she was able to get? Post office, and
right.
she did that for decades. Grateful for it. And my dad was kind of the same track. I mean, he was Sparky back in Cuba, so he worked for the phone
Mm,
company, and he worked for the phone company in Spain. He worked for the phone company here. So the scenery changed and the pay got better, and there was significantly
mm-hmm.
less communism. But it
Right.
wasn't really a big change for him. Uh,
Yeah.
and you're absolutely right. Like, there is something to be said for the stereotypical immigrant work ethic, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with the 9 to 5 or the 8 to 5 or whatever the hell it is you
Yeah.
work. I mean, everywhere I've ever worked, I've been surrounded by people who were 20-year, 30-year employees. They were ecstatic because they were home at 6 o'clock every night to have dinner and play with the kids.
Yeah, and that's
And
fine.
I was
Yeah.
I was the idiot, because I wanted to do something else, because I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, because I wanted to do something risky, or otherwise,
Right.
not in the box that you're supposed to follow of, get a degree, get a job, get a mortgage, get a family, die. Uh,
Right.
and
Yeah. Not that.
if
Yeah.
you
Not
look
the
out,
average. Yeah.
right, and honestly, I think one of the best uh, analogies I've ever heard or technically read about is, somebody told me that a lot of people just go through life like they're playing a game of Monopoly, except they
Oh
don't
boy.
buy anything, they
Yep.
don't build any houses, they don't do anything. They just keep pass and go and collecting $200 every time.
Yeah.
That's that's certainly
That's a poor strategy, in my opinion.
well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Every time I play Monopoly, I've lost, so maybe it's not that bad of a strategy after all. But there is always a place for the standard career, whether it's the workaday job or
Right.
the professional trajectory, whatever it is you want to call it. Okay, whatever
As
you're
long as you're
doing,
happy. As long as you're happy.
as long as
Yeah.
you're happy,
Yeah.
that's all that matters. And I truly personally believe that you and I have severe mental deficiencies because we chose this
Oh God.
entrepreneurial path. And
Yeah. Yeah, we
we've
did.
pulled our
Hmm.
hair out. You had a lot more hair when you first started this
Oh
than you
yeah.
do now, because
Hmm.
we just went out of our way to make things as ungodly difficult for ourselves and for our loved ones
Right.
as humanly possible. So maybe we're the problem. But then again,
But that's just it, though, right? Again, that's just it. We're willing to go through that, and there's a lot of other people willing to go through that. But then that's how we get our successes. I mean, I can't count enough how many times that people go, "Man, you're definitely, overnight success," or you know,
Sure.
talk about, "Wow, you did that real quick," or whatnot. It's like, no, it took a long time. I mean, you've been there with me for the majority of it for the past decade. The amount of
Yeah.
failures, the amount of
Oh
times,
yeah.
the ups and downs, and I mean, the amount of failures is greater, but all you need is one or two successes. And
Right.
that's the thing too. Not only talking about the general, overview about jobs, everything, but even within the business world, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur or just in business, there's so
Hmm.
many people that have a misconception now about overnight successes or getting the shortcut. I mean, we see it all
Right.
the time on our private equity side that we do, right? When we look at
Sure.
companies that are seeking investment or capital allocation,
Well,
there's so
like
many
most,
companies that try to do a shortcut.
yeah. Well, like
You know,
most
they
overnight successes, it only takes years of hard work to achieve.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. When you fail out of a pitch, and you gotta wear that suit for 4 or 5 or 6 hours on the bus back to your place.
Oh, don't remind me. That mega bus, I tell you, look, I think it's one of the better ways of transportation, right? Compared to like
Sure,
the Greyhound or something. But
compared
for
to
some
driving.
reason, dude, I remember when I finally upgraded to like the better seat.
Uh-huh.
I thought it was worse. That mega bus seat is literally plastic, and if you're
Yeah.
wearing sweatpants or something, you're sliding off. I mean, there's no way you're sticking up. Anyway, sorry, I had to go on a rant. That mega bus was torture. It was hot or super cold. That you slide off the seats because they're literally plastic seats, which I don't understand. But I did enjoy the midway stops in I think it was like Milltown
Sure.
or somewhere. I mean, Subway was
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Subway was a lifestyle, dude.
Right. And that's I guess that's a really uh, perverse opportunity, for lack of a better term, because a lot of people don't get to have that dubiously pleasurable experience of sweating their balls off on a cheap bus seat for 6 hours.
Yeah,
But I mean, I think we've been fortunate in our dealings that they've eventually paid off.
right.
It only took many years of hard work, late nights, having a day job,
And we're still
yelling at each
working.
other,
Yeah,
ignoring our significant others and parents, etc.,
right.
to get to where we are. And yeah, and it is still working. But the random rambling, I guess the point I'll eventually get to, uh, if it's something that you're gonna do, uh, certainly do it, and go into it boldly. To have a Ron
Yeah, as I
Swansonism,
say, full ass it. Don't half-ass
don't
it.
half-ass two things, whole ass one thing.
Exactly. That's definitely a theme that we have, and when companies pitch us, that's one of the first things I always ask you, right? Hey, Willie, are they whole assing this company, or are they half assing multiple companies here? Let's look at their backgrounds.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, so many
nights and
times we look at
weekends, right? That's
companies.
all you need.
Yeah, I mean, so many companies we look at, and they're not even focusing on the actual product or the service wholly. They're just half-assing
Right.
the product or service. and all they're doing is hoping that they look good. And, it's all about the look, right? And they can get to the 100 million, 1 billion valuation of sorts with just all the hype and hysteria, when it's like, no, let's refocus on, is your product or service valuable, first off, not only
Right.
today, but tomorrow? And are you looking to improve it? Are there people buying into it? It's just incredible to me how, again, outside the general world about 9 to 5 jobs versus entrepreneurship, it's within the business world. I mean, the shortcuts for taking, we're taking, not us, but I'm just saying, like, the people taking now in entrepreneurship or in business. I mean, even, investors and bankers, I mean, it's just all across. And I think that's really hurting our economy right now, because our economy was built based on real impact, real change, real innovation. They really cared about their products and services, and how it's going to make a meaningful change and help people in general, whether it's average Joes or big clients or whatever. And I think we're really missing that.
Well, sure. And, honestly, the get rich quick mentality. I mean, again, I can't.
That's why there's
I can't
Bitcoin. Sorry,
fault
that's another
people.
conversation. Sorry. That's another conversation later on. Yeah.
Subtle. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't. I mean, look, I don't really fault people for having a casino mentality or a get rich quick type of outlook, for lack of a better term. I mean, if I were in that position, if I had to choose between making $1 million quickly or making $1 million busting my ass off for years with no guarantee of success, I mean,
Right.
how stupid do you think I am? Of course I'll take the easy way. Like,
Right.
that's not just human nature. That's plain old logic.
Right.
But the problem with the casino mentality is that the house tends to win, right? That's why
Oh yeah.
Vegas exists.
Yeah, that's why those guys make a ton of money. Those
Right.
casino moguls, right?
Yeah. Well, you mean the mob?
Or what's the guy that just recently died? Shelton, right? Is that his name? The
Probably. I
He
don't
just
know.
recently died, but he was a billionaire, and I should remember because I met him multiple times. I'm sorry. Rest in peace, and God bless his family. And yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems is that we have this kind of self-fulfilling uh, prophecy, that this vicious cycle of you see a success, whether it's an entrepreneurial success or more recently with the meme stonks going
Oh
through the
God, or
roof.
Instagram photos of the
Yeah,
guy with the
you
fake
see.
Versace glasses and the Lamborghini that I'm pretty sure is a Chinese knockoff. Yeah,
It's a Fiero with a body kit.
yeah,
But you see these one-off successes, and it encourages risk. And on the one hand, that's fine. Okay, you can have upside risk as well as downside risk. Risk is not in and of itself bad or evil, but I think you combine that with a lack of patience, a stereotypical and possibly realistic and verifiable uh, lack of work ethic or reduced work ethic, or wanting something for nothing, whatever you want to call it, and
right.
you get this really dangerous outcome uh, because people in this country by and large have little financial literacy. Economics is boring,
Right.
finance is dull, whatever their
Right.
excuse is. But the simple fact is that our lives, not just you and I, but our lives as a species, revolves around money. Okay,
Yeah.
capitalism is what makes the world go round, whether you live in the U.S. or
No, we need
some.
handouts.
Sure, but you need some kind of financial literacy or some awareness of the basics of what's going on, right? Like, not everybody is going to be a hedge fund manager. Okay, that's
Right.
fine. You don't need to be.
Or a Kardashian, or or a Michael Jordan. Yeah, I mean, not everyone's going to be that way. And I mean, that's I mean, you hit it on nail on the head right there. A key thing to abolish nonsense, right? The theme of our podcast here, as we're going on, is educating our people more. I think
Sure.
one of the biggest ways that not only our country, but countries all around the world to abolish a lot of nonsense that we're seeing in today's world. I don't care if it's social, cultural, or business or any level. To abolish nonsense is education, and it shouldn't matter the level of financial, status you are. It shouldn't matter where you live. Like, I mean, I'm just using the United States as an example, right? It
Right.
shouldn't matter if you're in the projects of Philly or you're in Bryn Mawr or if you're in Harlem or you're in the Hamptons, right? Or you're in Compton or you're in Beverly Hills. If every child from K through 12 in our country, or preschool to 12th grade, has the equal opportunity to get the best education. And I know you and I know for damn sure that we
Right.
have the ability to do so. I mean, if
Oh,
we're
yeah.
able to spend trillions of dollars of stimulus checks and also trillions and billions of dollars of complete waste and nonsense in our government at all levels, and that's another conversation we can break down with plenty of Excel sheets I know you love. But if we, but if we do that, I think that would change everything. Financial literacy and just ability to understand the world more on a broader stage. I think that's going to change the game. And the United States could be, one of our partners said this, again, just focus on the United States. If the United States took this seriously, like today, and really funded and ensured K through 12, I mean, preschool through 12 is well educated and it's, again, focused on facts, not, agendas or political agendas, focus on facts, and especially with financial literacy and exposing to children to multiple different experiences, right? And I think we can definitely be the most powerful, the most influential, and the best country ever in the history of humanity. And again, I'm not saying we're not the best now. I mean, we still are, but we're losing a lot of steam. I mean, we're like the
Sure.
Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl when they lost to New England
Oh my
Patriots.
God. I was
I'm just
waiting
saying.
for that analogy. No,
Yep.
and that is a good point. I mean, I know I'm about to feel like an old man here when I say when I was a youngster.
Well, you are an old
Uh,
man.
I,
I'm messing with
when I
you.
was a young whippersnapper,
Right.
I do recall that my own educational experience was uh, very different from what our colleagues and friends who are educators now experience in the school system. Right,
Right.
like our my teachers were not kind. They, they were not. They were not going to hold your hand. If you failed a test or you bombed or whatever, that was your fault for not studying harder. There was no,
Right.
there's no acknowledgement of, well, maybe you learn a different way,
Right.
or maybe you need a material presented again, or maybe you have a learning disability, or anything that we have today. It was very much kind of brutal, and if
Right.
you didn't have grit and you didn't uh, do your best, you were going to fail, and they were not shy about telling you, and
Right.
preferably in front of the class, so that shame and embarrassment could motivate you.
Well, I mean, so
That
imagine, I mean, just real quick, imagine combining
Yeah,
that, right? I mean, I've told you about my K through 12 or preschool to 12
oh yeah,
experiences. I've been very fortunate, even though my family were immigrants, and I mean, we were dirt poor.
hmm,
You know how it is, dirt poor. I mean, my favorite meal, I mean, the greatest meal we had all week was freaking rice and soy sauce and eggs, right? Or with a little Chinese
you had
sausage.
eggs.
Yeah, by the way, that's still my favorite meal. But the high school, just high school alone, right? I mean, State College or high school, shout out. I have to give you credit, and even North Penn School District when I was in the Philly area, Greater Philadelphia area, from preschool to third grade. We had the best education experience, and if you combine what
Right.
you went through and what I had, for example, State College High School, when you got into ninth grade, not only do we have freaking two buildings, right? Because it's a large school district, but
Hmm.
large classes. But what really mattered was, all the teachers were top. I mean, most of them were top level. You really learned about a lot of multiple different things, whether it's history or in science. You were able to learn a lot of different, varieties, and you even learn finance actually, right?
Really?
And I remember, I never forgot when the school had a career and technical center, and that was
Mm-hmm.
probably the best thing that I think a lot of high schools around the country should adapt. Literally in ninth grade, I got a book thicker than the Bible of all the possible choices you can have. I think you're required. Correct me if I'm wrong. Whoever's listening, correct me if I'm wrong. You're from State College High School or an alumni, but the thick book contained, you're required to take credits in CTC. So whether you want to be a plumber, a woodworking person, or a chef, or for me, business, marketing, finance, right? Whatever you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, it covered almost everything, even a mechanic,
That's not bad.
you had the ability to choose that and experiment, right? I mean,
Nice.
I remember, I took I took woodworking. I was awful, so I knew for damn sure I'm not going to be a
You still
woodworker
have all your fingers, so you couldn't have been that bad.
somehow. Even after playing rugby too, and I remember doing like piloting. That pilot simulator, which I know you would love because you're a
Oh,
pilot.
that'd be awesome.
I crashed every time. I couldn't even get the thing off the ground until I think it was Mr. Siemens helped me. And but again, if every kid had that experience that you and I had and the opportunities to do that, I think more people would be better off and our society be better off. I think again, it's just a
Right.
lack of education and understanding, and at the same time, there's too much political influence on education. Oh, and by the way,
Sure.
teachers should get paid $200,000 easily. In my opinion, I think teachers should be, disagree with me, please, but I think teachers should be making easily minimum six figures because they should be,
Right.
one of the highest paid salaries because they're so critical to the future of our country.
Sure. I mean, I don't know about 200 grand, but I do agree that they are overworked and undervalued. But
Right.
I also know that the teachers unions are incredibly powerful. So who knows? Maybe they will get 200 grand.
Well, maybe
Uh,
checks and balances here. Maybe we should have some checks and balances there. Like,
it
look,
was only this podcast that made them do that. No one else thought of that before.
no,
But
but what
no,
we're saying is checks and balances. Hold on a second. You better have the qualifications and,
there we go.
there we go. And like every other job, meet criteria and perform every year to get
Right.
that salary. You're not going to sit
Sure.
there and just, pick your nose and just tell the kids whatever you want to do.
Well, I mean, there's a couple good points you bring up. So, yes, they're somewhere between, my educational experience where you mouthed off, you got smacked with a yardstick right in front
Mhm.
of the class, and no, that was not at Catholic school. The
And then they
Catholic
told
school
your
they used to
parents.
paddle, and then they told your parents and you got beat again. Somewhere between that and your experience at State College High, there has to be a happy medium, right?
Yeah.
You cannot actually treat children like fodder and throw them at each other and have this Lord of the Flies scenario in our schools and expect them to come out healthy. But at the same time, you're right. Teachers are incredibly important because last I checked, the only people that we have to replace us until we build Skynet and extinctify ourselves, the only people we have to replace us are our kids, right? And if you
Yeah.
don't teach them properly, the human race is just going to get stupider as the years go by. But the problem with that assertion, Vin, is yes, we need more funding for education. Yes, we need a better system. Yes, I'm going to conveniently ignore the host of redlining and districting issues surrounding that because I'm not a sociologist. But I do agree with you. But most importantly, we need to realize that even if we switch the button today and say, okay, we're going to increase education funding across the country 100-fold, even if it's
Right.
possible, who cares? We're going to do something today. We're not going to see results to that for 20 years.
But again, that's the
It
patience, right?
requires you're right. Like
Yeah.
you can't force a kid to go through an entire education curriculum, revamped or otherwise, overnight. Just like
Right.
nine women can't make a baby in 1 month. Okay, that's not how it
Oh,
works.
I
So
didn't
we
know that.
I have diagrams to show you after the show, I guess.
Sounds
But
good.
you know, we do need to adopt this, long-term mentality, and I think that's what separates the current world from, what your parents went through, what my parents went through, and I think that's kind of an interesting dichotomy because your parents are a lot younger than mine. My parents were born in the 30s,
Right.
so but it's interesting that their view, my parents' view on long-term sweat equity. You work hard because you're going to get a payoff eventually, even if it's not today or tomorrow. You have to adopt this long horizon mentality. That mentality is the same as what your parents had. It's the same as what a lot of successful people in their 50s and 60s currently have, and it's not really fashionable anymore, right? We
Right.
have this, and I'm not gonna sit here and say your generation killed everything, even though they did.
I mean,
Uh,
listen, I will half endorse that because I think the generation behind us, the younger one, Z, really expedited that. But again, that's just my opinion. Every generation is different. I'm not trying to hurt feelings here. Send all the hate mail you want, whatever. But the
Send it
key
to our
thing you said,
spam
though,
folder.
yeah, send it to blah blah at longinc.com. But you know, but I think the best term you said right there was the long term mentality, right? I think that's long term and long value return, whatever you want to say. But the long term mentality, I think, is the key. And I think that's what's been
Sure.
missing in our world lately, especially in our country. And I think that
Right.
leads to what you've been talking about lately is our economy, right? What we started with, you
Yeah.
know,
We
about the
keep coming
Phillips.
back to that. Eventually, we'll finish our
No, I
points.
mean, no, 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 but I think that's a perfect segment to that. I mean, the long term mentality is missing. I think that's why we're seeing more and more issues, with our economy, right? I mean,
Right.
this long term mentality issue has been started for a while now, but I think we're in a unique position now in our world where
Hmm.
all the mistakes we've had from what '08 and then the dot-com bubble and before. I think
Yeah.
now, for some reason, I just have a feeling that this time around it's going to be a bit different, because of the faster pace that we're working at, but also
Right.
the shorter term mentality we're having. And that's why, we've talked about it. I think there's going to be a big crash, in my opinion. I mean, what do you think
Sure.
about that?
Well, I mean, yes. So the short termism, I mean that's certainly nothing new. It's been around long enough that it's homework assignments and business school textbooks,
Yeah. But tech
and
just
it's
really expedited that, though. It made it
right,
worse.
and that's the thing. Never
Again, real quick, we
in
love
our
tech, by the
history.
way. We love tech. I mean, I love technology. We love technology. But yeah, it's expedited that short termism.
Well, we have to love tech. We're doing a show on using a magical box of light when we're 3,000 miles away from each other. That we can't
Yeah,
do that with stone tablets. I
I
think
wish.
the key difference is that never in our history have we had access to so much information and so much power, computationally and otherwise, as we do right now. Like we
Right.
are truly living on one of the highest stages of development of our species. We've never been this advanced. We've never had it this good.
Right.
But unfortunately, with all that technology, with all that capability, with the ability to take my $1,000 disposable pocket computer and do all my banking, do all my purchasing, my travel book, everything on
Right.
this little glass slab.
Yeah.
With all of that capability, unfortunately, comes the speed that you mentioned. We can do stupid things a lot faster, and we can
Right.
suffer the consequences a lot sooner.
Right.
But thankfully, that also means that the recovery will hopefully be faster. And as far as the economy goes, yeah, every
And
every day
and it
you
will recover, by the way. It will.
well,
It's
if it
just there's
doesn't,
gonna
we
be a
have
big
much
crash.
bigger problems. Uh,
Yeah. And just real quick on that, I mean, you and I have been talking about this, right? People for
Yeah.
again the long termism. If you look at
Hmm.
the markets charts, let's say the S&P 500, right?
Hmm.
People always think in the moment. Remember like '08 and the
Sure.
dot-com bubble, like, oh, the world's over, it's doomed. Get your tinfoil hats, dig a grave, all this kind of stuff, whatever. Stock up
Run
on
for the bunker.
gas. Yeah, I mean, speaking of stocking up gas, yeah, that's another thing. But but if you look at the charts, comparatively, it's little dips. If you look at the
Right.
whole chart, it will always
Right.
continue to go up. It's just to be a big dip, but there will be a big crash coming up, and we will rebound overall, and our markets will be greater down the road. But there is going to be a big learning lesson coming. And sorry to cut
Uh,
you off on that, but
Sure. No,
I just want to
and
make that
it's
point.
fine. And that's the problem with a lot of prognostication, and I'm as guilty of this as anyone else. Let's take 2020 for example. Even though I'm sure we would all love to repress the memory of that year,
Please.
in March, when basically the entire planet has its feet kicked out from under it,
Yeah.
markets tank. What was it? The Dow dropped to like 20,000 or 19,000 or some
Yeah, it was
just
unreal.
really, yeah, it was really scary decline. And everybody is like, oh, it's the bear economy. We're all doomed. Let's just start cannibalizing each other now and save ourselves the effort.
Right.
uh Market still finished up for the year.
Yeah. That's
So
actually a very good point. Yeah, just a
right.
year
and
alone. Yeah.
there's the often quoted uh truism, maxism, whatever, that over any 20-year period, there's no 20-year period where the market has finished down, right? I don't know if
Right.
that's true or not. I've heard it so often. I honestly don't care anymore about looking it up. But there are certain forces in the economy that are inevitable, right? Inflation is one of them. You're always going to have inflation, period.
Right.
That doesn't mean inflation is bad. Okay. Inflation is what drives the market to grow. The key with things like the S&P and with things like diversified portfolios, et cetera, can your return exceed inflation? So you end up with net positive real
Bingo.
return, a net positive real return on your money over time. Okay, and we're not talking about timing the markets, because that's stupid. There's a lot of technical indicators you can trade on if that's your thing. There's a lot of people who think technical trading is stupid, and there's a lot of people who think value trading is stupid. The point
Right.
is that you choose what works for you for your investment thesis. And the problem I think that we're seeing now with our current economy, we're overvalued, right? I'm sure everyone
I mean, that's an
has heard of the
understatement.
Buffett indicator, right?
Right.
And there's a whole lot of I think artificial push for a lot of these valuations, and it's the casino mentality that
Right.
we mentioned earlier. You know, what what is this based on? Okay, because I don't care. I understand that the things like the PE ratio are based on what people expect your future value of a certain equity to be, right? And fine, but at the end of the day, you have to produce something to justify that valuation, or the market is going to correct itself. And
Right.
when it corrects itself, it tends to do so very violently. And if you're left
Yeah.
holding the bag, well, sucks to be you. But again, if you have the long-term mentality, here's another great saying that everyone should have on the wall. Buy when there's blood in the streets, even if the blood is your own.
And
You
that's
know,
what you and I are waiting for, to be honest.
well,
Yeah.
sure, like sharks circling the bait. But
Yeah.
the simple fact is, volatility is inevitable. Okay, without volatility, you don't have growth. Without volatility, you do not have any investment opportunities. Stocks do not only just go up, despite what the internet might wish. And you have to realize that, yeah, there probably is a crash coming. We cannot keep interest rates near zero forever. We're not going to drive interest rates to zero or negative
Right.
like Japan did. I think the rates are still ridiculously low over there. They actually had a market fallout that came to be known as the lost generation.
And
The
that's the fear
reason,
I have for us, right?
right?
I fear we're about to enter the lost generation 2.0. The American version. I mean, if you look at it, like you said, if interest rates are still near zero, but one of the biggest questions you and I probably get recently is inflation, right? How's inflation going to play a role? And again, this is my perspective. I want to hear yours.
Mhm.
My opinion is that you know we are coming back from, again, an unprecedented issue of pandemic, right, with COVID.
Yeah.
And just recently, the Biden administration and the CDC came out and saying, masks are no longer mandatory.
Hmm.
I mean, with some exceptions, of course, and all of that. But
Like if you're
it's just,
vaccinated and outside or
yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that,
But
right?
but it's just, but long story short, it's the fact that we're getting back to reopening, right? And I think that
Right.
does play a role in the inflation. And I do see where people are coming from, and I think that inflation will continue to go up because you have a swarm of people coming back into the world, whether it's
Hmm.
eating out, getting gas, traveling, buying more of X, Y, and Z. I mean, we saw the price of lumber, right? Copper,
Oh
all
God,
this
yeah.
stuff. It is it's skyrocketing because everyone's coming back, and people are arguing that it's going to, inflation is going to come back down because once the, economy, once this, surge from the economy from people coming out of the pandemic, plateaus and comes back to normal, then inflation will
Hmm.
come back to normal. Now, I can see that temporarily, but I can also see that not happening because of supply chain issues, right? I
Right.
mean, and also you said this before. I mean, you said this before about supply chain. If they're gonna, if company A is selling, let's say lumber, right, and they're selling for what is it now, 300% over, you know,
I think it's up 300% or like,
yeah,
yeah, it's up some
yeah.
ridiculous amount.
Why would you want to go back down? Because you're making a premium and people are still buying it.
Right. And a lot of that is a supply issue that as I read it, lumber went through the roof because the mills couldn't keep up. And once they can, well, why would they?
Right.
If the shortfall in labor and productivity has been so great as to drive up the price of the one asset that I sell, and
Mhm.
I'm in that position to benefit from it, why the hell would I want to jump capacity up and risk deflating that? Like,
Right.
okay, fine, I'll gladly run at reduced capacity just to artificially keep it propped up. I mean,
Yeah,
you
and you
can
can't
argue the
blame
morality of
capitalism.
that.
I
Right.
mean, that's just. I mean, that's just business. I mean, anyone. People that are hypocrites and say, "Oh, I would never do that." Yeah, you would. You're sitting there collecting big fat checks, 300%, over price. Of course you're going to continue that.
I mean,
But
I
yeah,
guess that's what makes me different. I'm completely open about opportunism, but I think with lumber especially, and with the metals, also you mentioned that yeah, there was reduced capacity, which cut supply, drives the price, fine, whatever. But you also have increased demand. Okay, like the housing market on fire everywhere. I know everybody in Idaho is pissed off that so many people are moving there. I don't blame them because it's a
yeah.
gorgeous state. I
Texas
wouldn't
and
want anyone
Tennessee is the
else
same.
moving there either. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even Las Vegas is one of the fastest growing markets in the country. And
Right.
I don't know if you've been to Vegas in the last, 8,000
Well, the
years,
strip clubs are
but
going to be busy.
it's a desert.
Yeah.
It's hot in Vegas. It's
Right.
brutal, but this is where people are, one of the places where people are going because that's where you can find housing. The builders of the homes, I don't know if they've ever had this much work. You know,
Right.
they're they're happy, but they're gonna build to their capacity. Okay, they're
Right.
not gonna expand and try to match the demand, and then when the demand's gone, have to contract and fire people.
Right.
They're matching, they're building to their capacity. If demand exceeds that, oh well. The
Right.
mills, they're producing to capacity. Demand exceeds that, oh well. That's it. It seems like opportunism and artificial price inflation, and it may be to an extent, but it also has to be good business sense. Okay,
Right.
this will not go on forever.
No.
Okay, sooner or later the check comes due. I don't care how many stimulus packages you sign into existence and how much you make printer go burr. Okay, there has to be some rationality that comes back into the economy, period. And it'll either come back with decreased spending and decreased demand, or it'll come back very violently
Right.
when these overblown valuations finally pop, and who they're gonna everyone starts playing the game of who's the bigger idiot and who do we want to leave holding the bag.
Right. No, and and that's a good point there. And you know, again, supply and demand, and that's the issue with the supply chain. But even factoring that, but the greater, bigger picture is you touched it earlier. Is even let's say we're still in a perfect world that does come back down. Prices get corrected, all that, whatever. There's still going to be a crash because two factors, which we'll hit on. One is the markets are severely overvalued, which we touched briefly, but let's dive deeper into that. But also, two, artificially, our treasury and our Fed are artificially keeping things, and that's the worry. And inflation, I think, is going to get even worse. Again, let's say it comes back down, it's going to come skyrocketing back up. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I see happening. So you have two factors here. You have markets being super overvalued, and then you have the artificial pricing and artificial, the Fed stepping too far into manipulating the economy.
Sure, and the Fed are doing their job, right? They're trying to do the job. We're not trying to demonize anybody. It's a horrible job that I wouldn't want to wish upon my worst enemy. But you are correct. There is a lot of literature out on the interwebs about the market valuation being anywhere between 120% to 300 some odd percent, depending on your indicator, overvalued, right?
Right.
And
And that's from
even
legit
if it's
sources, not the
right,
onion.
these are legit sources. These are equity research companies. These are a bunch of sharp, pointy heads that are really smart and do this stuff for a living. This is not just
Mhm.
some idiot puking into a microphone. Uh, Even if it's on the low end of that 120% overvaluation, that's still terrifying if it's going to correct. That's a hell of a lot of capital that's going to not necessarily be destroyed, but you're going to have a huge drop in that. And and again, I have intimated it before. You cannot keep dumping money into an economy that is in recovery, right? It's a gross misunderstanding of human nature, and it's a gross misunderstanding of the laws of economics. Okay, we have been on lockdown, even if people don't adhere to it, whatever, that's a
Right.
different issue. The last year has been hell. Okay. We finally have the vaccines. We finally have a sense of normalcy returning to our lives. Places are back up to 100% capacity. I don't know if you've seen like the casinos in Vegas are all 100% or almost all 100%. No social
Yeah.
distancing,
Yeah.
whatever. You have all of this pent up consumerism that people have not been able to fully express over the past year, and now we got 30, was it 35% of the country vaccinated fully now. I think that's what I saw in the news the other
Yeah.
day.
And I think what's like 60% or so have their first shots.
Right.
So I think that's why the CDC kind of loosen up the mask because 60% of their first shots, there's 80% what protection from that, and all of them are getting their second
Something
shots.
like that.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that number is going to go up. Anyways, yeah, I think that's why they
Yeah.
loosened it.
I mean, we're on a tear of getting back to normal, right? This is the worst time possible to even consider trying to inject more capital into the economy. And it's
Right.
I have to admit, I don't know what is going to cause the contraction. We'll call it that. Uh, because I'm not a fortune teller. And if I were clairvoyant, I wouldn't be working for a living. I'd be playing the lottery.
Yeah, and I'm not
But
going to be able to predict because you can't rub my belly either and be able to get you an answer.
but the overblown valuation, the buffered ratio of debt to GDP, everything is pointing toward this kind of precipice that we may fall from. And the real question is, what's going to trigger it? Okay,
Right.
is it going to be consumer spending? Is it going to be another stimulus? Is it going to be some other unforeseen externality? God forbid we have another mini pandemic, which still keeps me up at night with all the various mutations of COVID.
Right.
What's it going to be that finally pushes us over the edge? And honestly, I don't know, and that's
Mm.
and in my view, I don't think I really need to quote unquote know, because if the signs are there and the writing's on the wall, who cares who wrote it?
Yeah.
Shore up and prepare for the worst. And if the worst doesn't happen, well, you know what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with taking a defensive position with your finances. There's absolutely nothing wrong with trying to find stocks that are undervalued. That there's absolutely nothing wrong with applying good old fundamental principles
Yeah.
to your decision making. Do you miss out on potential returns? Sure. Okay. Everybody can Monday morning quarterback and say what should have happened in the big game. But when it's your own money and it's your own well-being at stake, it becomes a little bit different. And it's kind of like Pascal's wager, right?
Right.
If you prepare for the worst and it doesn't happen, who cares, right? You
Right.
prepared. And honestly, and I hope I'm wrong. Okay,
Right.
I take no joy in being right about predicting misery.
And that's the difference between us and those people on. Again, I love them all. We respect them all, but those on in the media and talk and the financial experts, I think they want it like they're they're looking for news stories. For us, we
Sure.
actually want the best, but unfortunately, like you said, the writing's on the wall, and I'm sure the listeners are going to want to ask about. So what should they do, right? What should they do? And you and I get these answers these questions all the time. And
Right.
my thing goes back to basic principles, right? At least from my end, it's like, look, whatever you make, I have a philosophy in where I spend a third, I save a third, and I invest a third.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to
Yeah.
investing, don't fall for the hypes of specific IPOs or SPACs or what's ever trendy. I mean, I think that's the biggest problem is, you know, people are so caught up in the trendy stuff, whether it's investing or just in life in general with our culture because of social media. My biggest thing is don't fall for the trendy stuff because usually there's a reason why it's trendy and it's not going to last long. Focus on actual value investing, right? Focus on what
Right.
matters when you invest in a company. Are they going to survive? Let's say this contraction happens. Are people still going to need their product or services, right? Not only now, but during that and then after, right?
Right.
How are they looking? Like, for example, I always say Coca Cola. People love soda, right?
Yep.
People in this world love soda.
Yep.
Yes, the stock is there. The stock is slow, but I don't look at it as a stock. I look at it as a company that provides value. It provides very affordable drinks and snacks because we forget Coca Cola is a large conglomerate. They own a lot of other brands besides drinks and everything, and people are going to need it. Walmart. People will continue to shop. Even Amazon. It's one of the few tech companies where I see they're not going to contract as much as other tech companies
Right.
because people are still going to order. People are going to still need products. They're still going to need delivery. So those are the types of things that the advice I have. And I know it sounds boring as all hell, but that's what I tell people. And I tell people to hold on too. People are like, oh,
Right.
excuse me, the market's hot. I want to buy all these stocks. I want to buy all these things. I want to buy all in the real estate. I'm like, you should probably wait. Like you said before, wait till there's, blood in the streets to buy. So for
Right.
now, it's okay to buy specific companies and studied and you see value in them down the road, not only now and during the contraction, but after. and you want to stick to. Like, and also only invest money that you don't mind losing, A, right? And B, money that you're not going to be looking back and forth for every day. That's one of the problems too. People look at stocks every damn day when I keep telling them,
Yep.
don't look at it every day because you're going to flip the hell out.
Yeah, they go
um,
Mr. Market on everything.
yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to rant, but that's my advice for people is, to recap is, save what save what you can. If you can invest, look again at stocks that are valuable, or go to ETFs, or add more to your 401ks or whatnot. Stick to things that that and you can study, or listen to your financial advisor, as long as they're not from a hedge fund. Again, I love hedge funds. I love you all. Maybe your clients and sorts.
I don't think they make up our core audience anyway. So
Yeah, so I love you all, but you know what you do. What do you think, Willie?
You bring up good points. Number one, there's absolutely nothing wrong with owning and investing in ETFs. I know we had this discussion on my portfolio is almost nothing but ETFs plus a couple, stocks that I really like that are probably already in the ETFs anyway. I just want to have extra exposure for whatever reason.
Right.
And obviously, this is not financial advice, dear readers and dear
Disclosure.
listeners.
Yeah.
Make your own decisions and live with your own mistakes. But I think the reason why, especially SPACs, get so much attention is because SPACs and IPOs are sexy. Okay, from a
Yeah.
media standpoint, they're wonderful stories. Company X goes public on a whatever $1 billion valuation, and it's only 8 years old. I mean, Jesus, that's the American dream right there in a nutshell. You start from nothing and you explode into this huge success. Unfortunately, as we've seen,
firsthand.
SPACs sometimes go very badly wrong. I mean, there's a huge implosion, not necessarily implosion, a huge decrease in SPACs over the past year. And again, going back to what you said before, companies need to deliver something that is actually of value, whether it's a product or a service. Hype is only going to sustain you for so long. Okay, and the one example that came across just today, the 5 electric vehicle companies lost about they lost about 40 billion total from their initial SPAC valuation. Most of that downfall centering around some flavor of misleading investors. Okay, in air quotes. I'm not saying they defrauded.
Yeah, it's hype and trendy stuff. Yeah,
right. But the thing, and I think with SPACs in particular, you can make projections, forward-looking projections via SPAC that you can't do with a traditional IPO. People forget that. And that lead to rose tinted glasses? Well, I don't know. Ask the missing 40 billion from these 5 companies' initial valuation. But the thing that you have to remember is there's no such thing as a good time to start investing. There's no such thing as a bad time to start investing. And this is especially true if you're a retail investor. Again, if you're independently wealthy, you have 800 billion assets under management, you play by different rules, so you think, and this probably doesn't apply to you.
And and you're getting screwed by EV companies. Yeah.
But especially if you're a retail investor, whether you're a so-called normal person or you're middle class or upper middle class, wherever it is that you lie on the spectrum, there is no good or bad time to start. Okay, just do it. And similarly, there's no good or bad news necessarily, especially if you're just starting out. You have to understand that unless you are the market maker, unless your name is on the side of a building, and unless you are being covered by the Wall Street Journal personally, anything that you see probably has all the information priced in already. You are not, the chances of you finding a diamond in the rough especially on the big exchanges and the big securities that are heavily analyzed and heavily researched, the odds of you finding a home run hidden gem, probably zero. Okay. Just accept the fact that you are doing this for the long term. Okay. You are investing today so that you can have more tomorrow. Tomorrow being, 10 years from now when you retire or
Mhm.
whatever. And yeah, and like you said, invest in stuff that people need, not just in general, but consistently. Okay. You said Coke. I like Home Depot. Why? Because everyone needs somewhere to live and stuff always breaks.
Yeah.
Whether it's your own house and you have to pay for it, or the apartment management company that runs your place has to pay for it. It doesn't matter. Things like that are always going to be in demand because you're always going to need a toilet, you're always going to need a sink, and you're
Yeah.
always going to need to repair something. Okay.
Yeah.
Not to be morbid, but if you find casket companies that are publicly traded, that's probably also something you might want to look
I
at.
was,
But
I was gonna say, let us know.
but these aren't uh, these aren't recommendations of what specific stocks to buy or not buy or whatever. It's a mentality that you have to have. Okay, the
Right.
greatest the greatest thing that we have in this country is the ability to accrue wealth over time. You pass it on to our children, and so on and so forth. We have this ability to take a long term view of our wealth and our well being. And as long as you don't fall into the stupidity of trying to make $1 billion overnight, and again, it is probably mathematically possible. I haven't actually done the numbers. Probability is probably non-zero that you can do that, but
Right.
realistically, not going to happen. Okay, you just
Right.
have to realize you're going to have to ride the ups and downs. Okay, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with investing in the market as a whole and supporting the American economy, like Warren Buffett says. Don't bet against the American economy.
Yeah.
I think he said it much more eloquently than I just did, but realize that especially if you're the so-called little guy, okay, you are part of a much larger machine that is driven to grow and expand because the companies that are part of that machine are trying to improve what they offer to the customer. It is almost inevitable that that the market will continue to increase in value over time because at the end of the day, the economy, in air quotes, is a bunch of companies making stuff that people want and need and are willing to pay for. And that's what you have to keep in mind. Ride the bumps. Okay, just enjoy it. And lost 20% in a month. Cool. How awesome is that? That's something to tell the grandkids about. But
Yeah.
just realize that today,
But that's the long term mentality you're talking about. We're talking about.
exactly. And that's
Yeah.
that's the thing, Vin. It's like that doesn't get enough airtime because it's boring. Because when
Yeah.
somebody says, I want to learn about investing, we tell them, okay, well, buy ETFs and keep contributing to them and go about your life and never check it.
No, it's not
And
sexy.
it will guarantee
Right.
it will grow in value over time. Well, I mean, that's boring. Why would I want to pay, hundreds or thousands of dollars for a seminar to learn that?
But here's the thing, boring works. Boring works.
Boring
Like
works.
that's what people have to realize is that the majority boring works, and you can't compare yourself to the guy next to you or the guy on TV, right? I
Right.
think that's probably the biggest misconception and the mentality that people have right now that's a mistake, which is you need to focus on you, right? You
Yep.
know what you're able to do, whether it's X amount that you can invest, and and do your reading, trust your instincts, and all that, and listen and do research. But you
Yeah.
know the boring works, and don't look at the guy on CNBC or Bloomberg or look at Warren Buffett. I mean, listen to them, right? I mean, get this
Yeah.
perspective, but don't compare yourself to them. And often these people that I mean, we work with them and we're part of them actually. We get different types of insights than most other people, right? And different, not only different insights, but different intel, but
Different opinions.
with different opinions. you know,
Some valid.
yeah, I mean, it's, that's what people have to realize, right? Stop comparing yourself. Do what, learn, but do what you can,
Right.
and just start investing. And it's never going to be perfect. You're going to
Yeah.
learn, but
You're gonna learn the
you know,
hard way.
you're going to learn the hard way, but play the long game. And I think, to sum up about the markets, I think that's what, people have to realize. You're not the hedge fund guy. You're not the, you're not the, the guy that got, 3 MBAs in finance or whatever, or worked at 10 banks. That's, don't compare yourself to that guy. I mean, aspire to, feel free. I mean, that's the American dream.
Right.
But look at now, look at the reality, and and invest for the long term. That's how you'll succeed.
I
And that's what I
agree.
have a problem, by the way. And that's the problem I have with like these guys with Wall Street bets, right? And
Oh boy.
yeah, and with
Here we
no,
go.
and with well, and with Robinhood, right? Yeah, again, I like Robinhood. I like the fact that they're providing the ability for anyone to download an app and to invest. But to me, that's almost too easy, right? Not almost, it is too easy. And
Right.
we don't have a population that's very highly financially literate. And that's just opening a can of worms that I'm just worried about. And and then two, the Wall Street bet guys, I get where they're coming from,
Right.
right? But it's setting an unprecedented tone, or an atmosphere that I think is going to really take a negative effect to our markets. I think that's going to be part of the big contraction that we're going to have, is the fact that we have so many people not knowing what they're investing in, and
Hmm.
it's causing a big over inflated, overvalued stocks, and that's going to correct itself.
Well, probably. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Wall Street bets. I'm sure everybody
I'm sure there's going to be people
has heard about
triggered.
the GameStop saga by this
Yeah.
point in time.
Right.
Uh, it's so I'm of two minds about this. Yes, I see the validity in a lot of the arguments against apps like Robinhood and the gamification of trading. Okay, and I understand why people are, to put it mildly, a little upset about Robinhood and other e-brokers doing payment for order flow.
Hmm.
And basically that means that they're selling trades to the big guys, the market makers, who are going to fight for the right to execute those trades, and then the brokers collect a fee based on X number of shares or options that end up getting traded. Uh, that's on the surface that seems like a conflict of interest, but at the same time, you know, you have to ask yourself, like, well, how the hell are these people supposed to make money? Okay, like
Right.
and this is some of the democratization of technology. Stock trading has gone from, the stereotypical 1980s, uh, just overblown asshole calling his broker on the phone for a hot tip and screaming into the receiver, buy, sell, whatever. And now it's this completely highly automated system that you can enjoy in the privacy of your own home. But we don't have fees anymore. That's been a race to the bottom for a while. Apps like Robinhood and the other e-brokers, they're free to use, they're free to download. You can pay for a subscription fee, a nominal amount for extra information or whatever on
Right.
most of them. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, like, if you're not paying for something, you're the product. Okay.
Yeah.
You can't download a free app that costs you nothing to use and then get pissed off when you find out that they're selling order flow to keep the lights on and pay their employees. Like
Yeah. It's a free
that's
app, and you're putting
stupid.
your own money into it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, to invest.
You are the product. If you're upset about the payment for order flow, well, why? Okay, how would you recommend that they make money otherwise? Like, do you really think the e-brokers created these businesses and these apps because they were bored? I mean, are they all just independently wealthy app developers that had nothing better to do with their time? Hey, let's make a free broker. No,
Right.
it's a business. They
Yeah.
have to make money,
Yep.
and yes, with the GameStop issue in particular, yeah, there were a lot of people pissed off because trading got suspended, and a bunch of people on the Hill got up and mighty in their suits, and now the Financial Services Committee is considering bans on paying for order flow, and it's just another
And most of them probably have
example.
terrible investments.
Well, yeah, it's just another example of politicians being a bunch of smooth-brained idiots that are trying to
Hmm.
legislate what they don't understand. But
Right.
at the core of all of this, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Okay, there never has been. Even no matter what you do, someone somewhere is going to have to get paid. That's how the system works.
Yeah.
So is it bad that people, blow their savings on an option that goes south? Yeah. I mean, if you go on Wall Street Bets, they have what they call loss porn of people
Oh
posting
boy.
screenshots of all the money they
Right.
lose on
Right.
trades that go south. But you have to look at this holistically. And as a side note, I'm really upset that the Deep F and Value is the one that got hauled into questioning, because I would have loved to have seen potato in my ass or one of the other user handles enter
And those are
the
actual
federal
user handles.
record. And those, yeah, like
Right.
I would have loved to see that be part of the written history of our country. But
Right.
you look at these at some of these forums, and you have people posting that, you know when I was younger, my dad lost his job in '08, or my family fell on hard times, and like they're pouring out this life story. These are people that watched their family's fortunes disintegrate over just idiotic moves by the banks. And what do you get with it? You have a bunch of people who are furious, and who see an opportunity to kind of strike one for the little guy, and they see the short interest on something like GameStop or AMC, and they just pile on, and they short
Hmm.
squeeze the hell out of everybody, and they make the big guys bleed. Okay, and that's something that Occupy Wall Street could have never dreamt of, because the technology didn't exist.
Right.
Okay, but you have these. What they also don't talk about is you have the same people in these forums posting screenshots of donations that they make to St. Jude's or to other charities, and I don't mean like $100. We're talking 10, 15, $50,000
Right.
donations,
Or millions. Yeah.
or millions. And you have this unique capability with your phone, with the technology that we have today, to really forge your own future. Okay, and I'm not recommending that you go all in on an option for stuff that you don't understand,
Please
because you're
don't.
gonna learn you're gonna learn the hard way how the
Yep.
market works. But again, people need to stop being stupid and looking for the easy fix. Okay, especially with the payment for order flow or the short selling,
Yeah.
or whatever
Let's abolish
the
this nonsense
catastrophe
now.
du jour.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever the catastrophe du jour happens to be. Okay, just shut up and look past that. What is actually going on? Okay, these huge companies are not pissed off because a bunch of people that proudly call themselves apes and morons in a
Hmm.
forum piled on and made money for themselves. They're pissed off because they got their asses handed to them. Okay, getting your ass handed to you does not require a federal law to make you whole. Like, I'm sorry, you knew the risks when you went in. You want to play with the big boys, you want to play with the real money. Well, you know what? Sometimes you got to pay.
Yeah.
Period.
Well, I think there's a lot of good points there, and and wholeheartedly agree. One of the things I thought about Wall Street bets, in my opinion, is, it's just amplifying human nature more to the large audience. Like for a long time, it's been a small group in Wall Street and then Silicon
Yep.
Valley, who are, or London or wherever, that were taking, that were the ones playing the game, right? And they were trying to get the shortcuts or trying to make the quick buck, really hit it off, right? Like the Wolf of Wall
Yeah.
Street guys, right? You always had that, you
Yeah.
had that for a long, long time. But the Wall Street guys, the Wall Street bets guys think they're, democratizing. They're doing it for the average people. They're starting a movement. All they're doing, in my opinion, is they're just
Hmm.
amplifying the small group of Wall Street guys that have the same mentality. The only
Yeah.
difference is, they're just trying to make money in general. They're not having some social movement. And now it's being
Right.
open now to the broader public. And
Yeah.
they need to look in the mirror. You know, if that guy from Wall Street bets and this guy from straight up from Wall Street looked at each other in the mirror, they couldn't tell the difference. They are just the same. And that's why I tell people, you know, end of the day, like we've said a long time, the market will win overall,
Yep.
and the basic, just financial principles will win. And that's what we tell people: go with boring, don't go with trendy, don't go
Sure.
for the, I just want to make a quick buck. I'm gonna, I'm gonna buy, a bajillion shares in a airplane company in a garage, like in Wall Street, like in Wolf of Wall
Wolf
Street.
of Wall
You know,
Street.
yeah, I mean,
Aerotyne Industries.
yeah, exactly. No, it's about principles. It's about value. I mean, and these are real companies you're investing in, and these are real
Right.
companies with that have real jobs and make real impacts and all. You can't play with that, and that's
Right.
where I had a problem with the Wall Street bet guys. They think they're doing a social movement and they're making their money. Great, good for them, but don't make it a social movement. You're just like everyone else on Wall Street or other places in London or Tokyo who are playing that short game, not the long game. And that's why you and I love Warren Buffett, because we need more investors like that. Longer
Right.
term investors who look at value and companies that are good in the long term, that create jobs, that are valuable with products, that make valuable products and services, and they'll be around for a while. And look, if they're a company that's not doing well, their product sucks, whatever, they'll get punished. Great. And GameStop, that's another thing that pissed me off with GameStop.
What's that?
They're a crappy company. They are a bricks and mortar technology store. Have you ever heard of Amazon? Have you went to Apple.com? Have you went to eBay? I mean, it's not. They haven't modernized. So these guys are bringing credibility to a freaking company that didn't modernize. Sorry,
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that
that
because
doesn't work for me.
a lot of the piling on that happened with GameStop in particular, you can make the case that it actually helped save the company. They got the what's his name, the guy from Chewy got hired on. That they're in GameStop are making a bunch of moves exactly to modernize, to have a greater presence in game downloads, in something that kind of makes the actual physical stores more of an experience,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just something transactional. I mean, even before all this, I would go into a GameStop and I'd see things that I never saw in a video game store growing
Right.
up, like a bunch of shelves of toys or apparel, or like just what I call random nerdy kitschy stuff. Stuff, stuff like that. Is it dumb? Sure, you can make that argument. But I also have, half of my T-shirts are now video game themed because of it. So
Right.
obviously they did something right.
No, you
But
bring a good point. Yeah.
yeah, and do I think we'll see something like that again? I'm not sure. Probably not. At least
Right.
not in the same way. And you can certainly make a lot of arguments as to the validity of what those types of efforts have done. Uh, Personally, I don't see a huge difference between Wall Street bets running up GameStop and a mutual fund. I mean, the big difference, you're
Yeah.
you're using your own money on your own instead of pooling it together and having an official centralized agency
Right.
make the trades. But the apes have spoken,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
I think we've seen the result of it, and certainly uh, I hope that it will certainly make some of the larger funds think twice before taking a huge short interest in a company just to make a buck, or trying to keep ladder selling back and forth to drive the price down and cover their own asses. So
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. But
No, that's a good
hopefully,
point, though. Yeah. I mean, very good point. I agree with you on that. I mean, especially like the hedge funds that do that, right? A and B, the hedge funds that also, you know, overvalue companies as well. And I
right.
think that's that's
It's
gonna be a
nothing
big part of
against
the
the hedge
contractions.
funds. Right. I mean, look,
No, there's
I
no,
love the
there's
hedge
nothing against
funds.
them.
I think they're
Yeah,
cool. I want to
yeah,
be a billionaire one day. But
right.
at the
Hey,
same
we're getting close.
time, yeah, it's like at the same time, do I feel bad for what happened on the short squeeze? No, not really.
No, yeah,
Had that happened, had that gone the other way, and a bunch of regular everyday people got hammered and lost their houses and their livelihoods and had to sell their kids into farm work for the Amish to pay their bills or whatever. Yeah, I would feel
yeah,
bad. I would feel bad
right,
if it gone the other way, but it didn't. So, not to
yeah.
be heartless, but I'm sorry, you kind of got what you deserved.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, you totally bring a good point, and I think it's for further debate down the road.
Sure.
But no, you're right. I mean, I think we're both right in certain points, and I just think the listeners we have that in general. I mean, obviously we have listeners that are going to be in the hedge funds, and I apologize, but and that are higher
They're going
net
to
worths
short
that
us.
yeah, the higher net worths that are that are active investing, have great financial advisors like Morgan Stanley and J.P. Morgan stores, whatever. But I think for the average listener, end of the day is, yes, we think there's going to be a contraction in the economy, but you just need to again stick to what to your lane. you know, don't compare yourself to the others. Just to recap again,
Right.
focus on core basic financial principles and do what's right for you. Don't look
Right.
at the Bill Altmans. Don't look at the Carl Icahns. Don't look at the Warren Buffetts or the guy down the
No, no,
the
look at the
guy.
Warren Buffetts.
Well, I mean yes, but don't
Be like
or
Buffett.
yeah, or don't see that fancy guy in a suit with that $5 million house down the road from you and think, oh, okay, I gotta make these big bets. No, stick to your lane and look at long term vision, right?
Right.
And build your wealth that way,
Exactly.
or be an entrepreneur, right? Start your own
Or be an
company
entrepreneur.
or whatnot. Again, I think the principle we're trying to say here is, it is be, use your brain, abolish the nonsense you see, use your brain, be smart about it, trust what you know, do your research, and go from there and stick to core financial principles. Again, I'm ranting about that, but I don't think people hear enough of that, right? Especially every day when we talk to people, whether they're average Joes or even people that we know they're in banking,
Yeah. What should I invest in?
Yeah.
The market.
Yeah.
That's a stupid question. Like, well, what do you want to do?
Yeah. Well, I always
Should
ask them, like, do you shower every morning? Do you eat breakfast? What's your favorite food?
Yeah.
What do you need for your house? Do you drive every day to work? Think
Yep.
about all the companies that produce that, right? So,
Yep.
but I think you and I can agree, though, that the
Mm-hmm.
biggest scam is Bitcoin. and I call it Dogecoin because I want to dodge the hell out of it. And I think cryptocurrency is a scam as well. Look, I would have so many haters, and I don't care. I think I think
How do you
Bitcoin,
keep
all
track
them.
of them all?
I think it's pure trash. I think I can log on and play. What's a cool game these days? I don't know. I mean, the game I played was Roller Coaster Tycoon, right? I think the
God.
currency in that PC game is the same as Bitcoin, in my opinion. Yes, I've seen people make money out of it and all that, but we just published an article. You can find it on longholdings.com or go on LinkedIn. But we laid out right there on why it's not going to work. Yes, it's a hype. Again, it's a hype in the trend we've been warning people about, and it's going to collapse. And I know,
Well,
Willie, you have your thoughts.
oh, I have several. I'll try to keep my thoughts limited to what can actually be spoken in polite society. So I mean, I have an appreciation for the mathematics and the computational structure behind blockchain. I think it's cool. Yeah, I think blockchain is really cool.
I love
I think,
blockchain too, by the way. I do.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and you see a lot of you see companies trying to explore blockchain and for a variety of applications. I know in Africa they're looking for blockchain solutions for mineral trades. I've read about companies in
They need it.
aviation. Yeah, yeah. I've read about companies in aviation and aerospace using blockchain solutions for MRO, maintenance and repair, uh, spare parts, stuff like that. Like
Right.
I think there's a lot of value that can be had in the blockchain architecture itself.
It's a great
And again,
technology. It's great.
yeah, again, I think it's cool, right? But to attempt to assign uh, a currency to that same technology, I don't think has any value whatsoever. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like currency has to have several attributes. Okay, you got to transport it. It has to be uniquely identifiable. Has to have a certain level of rarity. Fixed denominations, etc. Right? It's financial strategy books 101. Okay, this is why we don't carry stone wheels or bags of shells around with us when we want to buy groceries.
Right.
But you also have to have currency be a store of value. Okay, and of all the sins uh, that crypto has, and there are many, that's the probably one of the biggest. Okay, I transact everything in US dollars. Okay, if I pay you $1 for whatever today, or I have $1 in my wallet, uh, I can go to bed tonight and wake up tomorrow, and I can expect that dollar to be worth pretty much the same as it was the day before. Okay, my dollar is not going to increase 30% in value overnight,
Mm-hmm.
or it's not going to tank because somebody sent out the wrong tweet, or made a joke about it
Yeah.
on a TV show or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I have
Or yeah.
stability.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with it, and this hurts to say, because I get screenshots from colleagues and friends, and they're up just stupid amounts of percent in Bitcoin and in Ethereum, and it really hurts to say, like, well, I'm on track to make my 10% this year.
But
Um,
we have the long-term vision. Yep.
but we do have the long-term vision. So yes, it does hurt to see the short-term gains. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, what is crypto solving? Okay. And I would argue nothing. All right. Most of the arguments for
Absolutely nothing.
I mean, most of the arguments for uh, crypto and for decentralized finance. So I don't think solve anything. Like I've had people tell me, like, well, Bitcoin's the future because you can have people in countries with oppressive regimes, or wildly fluctuating economies, that have a stable method of transaction. Well, no, you don't, because at the end of the day, you're still going to have to change that into fiat somehow, right? You still have to, do all the other things that you need to do with a regular bank account, except now you have this additional layer on top of it. You have this additional thing that raises eyebrows. And by the way, for all of Bitcoin and crypto's cleverness and genius, and I don't deny there is a lot of genius behind how it works. Okay, you have to go burn down an acre of rainforest to validate a transaction,
Mm-hmm.
but the concept is cool. Okay, I'm not taking any of that away from the creators of this stuff, but at the end of the day, all that cleverness can get wiped out with nothing more banal than lawmakers wielding pens. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
we saw that with the pipeline hack, that people were arguing. What was it? Buffett and Munger, I think, was the one that said, crypto is contrary to the interests of civilization, and everybody,
That sounds like him.
yeah, and everybody piled on and called him a muppet and made a bunch of jokes like, why would you ask your great grandpa to give you advice on a phone, or
Because
stupid
wisdom.
things. Yeah, and a bunch of things like that I'm sure everybody thought was really funny. But then what happens? The pipeline gets hacked. The ransomware people demand payment in Bitcoin. Oh my God! All of the naysayers just got proven right. It's nothing but a haven for criminals. And well, what happened? Well, they paid, and now the wallets got raided. So you have companies like Elliptic that actually find the wallets and can trace the transactions. You
Mm-hmm.
you have a lot more openness, ironically enough, with a public ledger than you would have if you just, I don't know, went to a bank, or if you were a criminal, if you just laundered cash the old fashioned way, the way
Mm-hmm.
that people have been doing for centuries, that still
Yeah.
contributes trillions in illicit economy transactions every single year. You don't need this mathematical gymnastics on top of it
Yeah, it's
to make your
overkill.
life any easier. It's overkill, and it doesn't have any value. Okay, like, I don't
There
know
is
if
none.
you're
Besides
aware,
losing the
like people.
password and your money's screwed.
Oh God, I
You
feel
know, you
so
know,
bad for that guy.
I mean, at
So
least
bad
with
for him.
cash, I mean, at least with a bank account, you forget your password, you can go into the damn bank with your ID and
Right,
get it reset or something. I mean, there's so many ways.
right. I mean, yeah. The it was the guy from San Francisco, right? Had like 7,000 Bitcoin on an iron
Oh
key, and he
God,
couldn't
yeah, it's like,
remember the password,
yeah,
and it was like 400 million bucks
yeah, it's like, sorry,
value at the time.
yeah,
Yeah, and the iron key. I mean, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's a pretty secure little device that you can only try to get into with incorrect passwords so many times.
yeah,
And if you trigger it and you piss it off, it's basically going to mulch your data into complete garbage. Like,
right,
you're never gonna decrypt that. Okay,
yeah,
not in your lifetime. Not until the heat death of the universe are you ever gonna get that information back. So there's huge risk to you, the user, when you're using this crypto, whether it's cold storage or whether it's the hot storage, it doesn't matter. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I think the biggest law, I asked the hodlers, you know, why do you bother using it? Like, how fast do you think? Oh, it's instantaneous. Well, no, it's not. When
hmm
you have a bunch of computers doing distributed mathematical stuff, that's the technical term for it, to try to append the next block, that takes time. Okay, and there's
hmm
plenty of examples of transactions taking from a couple minutes to, in some cases, a couple hours. Is a couple days out of the question? Probably not. You know, that's not a method of payment. That is not what a currency is supposed to do. Okay, and there are a lot of people who, I think uh, the transaction per second of Bitcoin is like 5,
right.
but you have credit cards that can do tens of thousands of transactions per second.
Oh, but
I
you're
mean,
such a boomer.
right, like even checks. Okay, even
Yeah,
checks have
bank
14 and a
wires.
half billion transactions per year. Okay,
Yeah,
credit cards 16 and a half billion.
yeah.
It's
Venmo,
it's not it's
PayPal.
not
I mean, my God, Apple Pay. there's so many
Right.
ways. It's like, oh, it's digital, it's modern. I'm like, I don't see anything different with it than them mowing using a real currency or
Right.
Apple Pay or whatever, or leaving a duffel bag at your doorstep for undisclosed reasons, you know?
I said more than once, I want garbage bags, not duffel bags.
All right,
I
my
know where
bad.
to put them.
Garbage bags.
Yeah, garbage bags I can at least reuse. Uh,
Whatever. You have
but
no taste.
even that's true. But even with these so-called, instant transactions that are off-chain, uh, it defeats the entire purpose because until it gets pended, it's not a transaction; it's a claim. Okay,
That's
that's
just
the
it. That's key right there. It's just a claim. It's not a
right.
transaction,
A
right?
confirmation is what makes the transaction secure and irreversible.
Right.
So if I'm going to sum it up, enjoy your orphan blocks, because if this stupidity ever got used on a wide scale, that's all you're going to end up with. And
Yeah.
again, what
I
the
have so
hell?
many claims. Like, oh, great. You sound like a debt collector.
And again, what the hell is the point? Okay, the mathematical genius behind it notwithstanding, what the hell's the point? It doesn't solve anything. It's gonna get legislated out of existence probably pretty quick.
Well, the SEC,
Especially,
the new
yeah.
SEC guy has already came out and it's like, look, they're taking a look at it, and I think they just recently opened a case against one of the currencies or whatnot or something, and
Oh, probably. I can't keep all the controversies
yeah,
straight anymore.
I mean, not to mention, I mean, look, the dollar works, okay, those real currencies work. I mean, it's not perfect, but it works, and
Right.
look, and you're not. I mean, people say they can, they can, we the people. It's like, yes, we are we the people, but
Yeah.
you're not going to beat again not only basic financial principles, but the central bank. They're not going to let
Right.
you.
And I mean, it especially hurts when I hear, people argue, I am a sovereign individual. Like, no, you're really not. Like, I'm sorry. You live in a society where you are forced to give up certain freedoms, such as the ability to be a standalone unit of crypto. And you're going to give up stuff to be part of a society that functions with a central bank, with a highly regulated banking industry
For a lot of
that serves
reasons.
to protect your money.
Yeah.
Okay, because if the bank down the street, explodes tomorrow, guess what? They're FDIC insured, so I don't really care.
Yep.
My money, I will still be made whole
Yeah.
one way or the other. I'm guaranteed to be made whole. Uh, you don't have any of that with crypto, and it's not a knock on decentralized finance, and it's not a knock on fintech as a whole. Like there is a serious problem globally and here in the US with people who are unbanked or underbanked for a variety of reasons.
Oh,
Uh,
100%. Yeah.
yeah, and we're not talking, 20 homeless people sleeping in the park. Like these are millions of people just in the US
Right.
that have this
Yeah, but
problem
that's
that
where
cannot.
fintech comes in. I mean, that's where
Right.
fintech comes in, not another freaking currency.
Well, yeah, not a fake currency. Like underbanking and unbanking for unbanked people. That's a huge problem. Okay, that
Yeah.
does need to be solved because the simple fact is that those people cannot fully participate in the system of capitalism that we have, and it is to
Yeah.
their detriment. So I wholeheartedly support fintechs that are trying to solve that problem somehow. But I think the solution would be, ironically enough, tighter legislation for these types that. And by the way, that's coming because it's not going to be that long until the government says, okay, crypto exchanges, you are now required to identify your hodlers and everybody who moves through your system.
Yep.
And if you don't, well, we have a nice warm jail cell in Leavenworth waiting for you. Uh, and the whole house of cards falls apart. Okay,
Yep.
so I think it's important that people uh, make a concerted distinction between this nonsense crypto crap, and fintech and DeFi in general.
That's very important that you said that. You know, their hearts might be in a good spot, but it's nonsense. And to abolish that nonsense, it's about fintech. It's about real solutions, and where I think there's apps. There's an app I saw the other day. I think I forgot to send to you, but it's an app that's created in Vietnam. And Vietnam's a good example. There's a lot of people that don't have bank accounts and all that, but everyone has a freaking phone, right? So they created an app where you can download, and obviously you have to go through all the things you need to, but it's literally a virtual bank, and where you can get paid instantly. So if you get a check, like a payroll, it acts as a bank, and you have that cash, and you can use that app to pay for other things. I mean, that's
not bad. That's like national Venmo.
That's practically what crypto is supposedly trying to solve, right? I mean, these guys, I think they just raised $5 million seed funding. And based on what I read, again, this is just initial reading for like a couple minutes, but literally, you're person A, you don't have a bank account, but you want to get, you have a job, you need to get paid, you need to pay bills, and you literally download this app, you validate your identification, obviously, all that stuff. But then all of a sudden you have a Venmo. I mean, the difference is Venmo requires you to have a connected bank account or whatnot. This doesn't. This acts as like a bank pretty much, and then you can get paid literally instantly from your job into this app account, and then you can start paying your bills from there. You can start just like a bank. How you can wire money or set up credit card payments. I mean, this app gives you, I guess, credit card numbers and bank numbers and routing, whatever. And again. Yeah, I'll send it to you. But to me, I mean, we should definitely invest in it, by the way. But so hey, that Vietnamese tech company, app company, reach us, 646-946-2176. But but again, that is the key difference. Is that's a real fintech solution that's actually going to make a difference, and it's not this whole freaking new currency that has no value. Because how is cryptocurrency going to help these people, like these people in Vietnam, right? That are getting paid. They need to have something that can get this money to them, and they can pay bills. Crypto doesn't solve that at all.
Right. I mean, there's very little that crypto can do that you can't do better with a bank. I mean, with
no. There's no little. It's none.
But with things like that app, I'd be curious to see if there's like an FDIC equivalent.
Probably.
And again, what I
know
about
fine.
Vietnamese banking law won't even fill an empty bottle.
Well, they're a bunch of communists, so I'm pretty sure it's pretty closely tight. So I can say that I'm Vietnamese. My family fled communism. Communism doesn't work, nor does socialism. But whatever.
I can say that I have an Asian friend.
Well, I mean, you and I both have families that fled communism, so we both have a little, backstory and why we hate it. So, speaking of social,
go ahead.
No, I would say speaking of socialism, communism, Biden's taxes.
Oh God.
I think that's going to play a role in contracting the economy and the markets. Again, to me, with all these numbers from, consumer prices going up, the inflation, the jobs market horrifically missing. Their estimates, and then with everything we just talked about for the past hour and a half, I think Biden's taxes are going to be a nail in the coffin, and I'm hoping our best format of how government can function. Yes, we have a lot of flaws, but we're still better than most other governments, in the history of how we function. But I think Biden's taxes are going to be horrific for our economy and for investment in this country, and it's going to give our adversaries or our competitors like China and other markets a huge advantage to us. So, I'm hoping Congress does their job and negotiate. I'm not a fan for any increase, obviously, but don't make it. What was it? He's trying to double capital gains. He's trying to get rid of the 1031 real estate loophole. There's just an overall taxes in general, corporate taxes raised and all that. I think it's going to be really, really bad.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the capital gains issue in particular
That's
really
America, damn it.
really pisses me off. Right, and that's the problem with, the politicians love to frame it as, well, this is what rich people use to escape paying their due. And you know what? Okay, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the fact remains that capital gains is one of the most powerful and helpful weapons you have to fight off your own poverty and to climb up from nothing, because it encourages a long-term view of things. It encourages people to not be stupid and try to, pump and dump and show how clever they are with their investments. And the whole point of capital gains is if you hold this asset long enough, you can pay less on what you make from it when you sell it.
Right.
It that
I
if
mean,
you
that's
get rid of
America.
that,
I mean,
right?
yeah.
And it's not something that you can just frame as a class issue or anything of the sort.
It's
The
definitely not a
capital
class
gains
issue at
system,
all.
right? The capital gains system and the ability to have a tax advantage when you sell an asset for more than you paid for it, that is what builds wealth. That is the engine that lets people crawl out of whatever they were born into and make a better life for themselves. If you make capital gains equal to the marginal tax rate, as
Or
what
more. I
it
think
is,
I think it's like what,
or it was like
50%.
43%.
It's
Yeah. Oh
ridiculous.
God.
I mean, it's gonna
Yeah.
be
I mean,
harder than freaking like Eastern Europe and like China and stuff. I mean,
right.
China is salivating over this, saying, "Come, Eric, come to China. Communism's
Right.
better." Oh, sorry, I just puked. Just saying that.
And here's the thing, doing that not only screws over people, it also puts our currency at risk. And yeah,
Big
the
time.
politicians are saying, well, it's only going to affect people who make over 400 grand, I think it was,
Right.
or
And
some.
yeah, they're saying trickle down economy doesn't,
Yeah,
it's not
no,
real. I'm
no,
like,
it's.
oh God.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
This is why we
Making
need financial
400,000.
literacy, by the way.
Well, that should be a required course when you get elected. Uh,
True.
400,000 when you don't have it sounds like a lot of money. Okay. If you're living paycheck to paycheck and barely scraping by, 400 grand is almost unimaginable. It's more money than some people hope or have any hope of ever seeing cumulatively in their entire lives. But honestly, it's not that much, and it's not a huge bar uh, to surpass when you start adding in, multiple sources of income. When you start adding in income portfolios, real estate income, et cetera. And that's the thing. It's the double whammy between capital gains and closing the so-called loophole for the 1031 that is really going to just kneecap a lot of people. And again, Washington loves painting this picture that,
Hmm.
we're fighting for the little guy. We're protecting you from the ravages of the hungry billionaires who are going to eat your kids' souls if we don't do this. That's not reality. Okay,
Hmm.
like 1031, closing that. First of all, it's not a loophole because it's in the damn tax law.
Yeah, and it's
It's
actually a
it was
benefit.
written into law that way. It's
Yeah.
hard to call something a loophole when that's how it's
Yeah.
written,
It's a
but
benefit because
it is a
it
benefit.
encourages investments and
It
growth.
does encourage risk. Exactly, especially in real estate, which is one of the most beneficial asset classes you can possibly have. Like, there is no quicker path to going from homeless to billionaire than real estate, because land is the only thing they're not making more of.
Yeah.
And real estate historically has outperformed damn near anything.
Oh, by the way, that creates a lot of jobs. It creates a lot of opportunity. I mean, oh, is that trickle effect? Oh, sorry. I think I just explained trickle effect. And with capital gains, like you said before, again, that's the long-term vision that capital gains does. And that's trickle down because it encourages people to continue to invest. It encourages people to bring, to build value because that's what they want. They
Right.
want greater gains. And I think the problem with our government is as well, they're falling victim to the short-sightedness as well.
Right.
They are falling victim to that. They want quick solutions when it's not a quick solution. They're trying to frame things like, as you said, that are completely false. And they have to realize that it's a long term. So it's a long term play here.
Right.
And these solutions and creating false narratives are not going to work when they need to look at the core of what the problem really is. We touched on
Right.
one of them. Education is a key part of it.
Yeah.
And government needs to look in the mirror. They need to stop manipulating the economy artificially, and they also need to look at their own spending and their own. It's funny. If we personally spend the way they spend, or companies spend the way they spend, I mean, we all either be in jail or be on the streets,
Broke.
broke as hell. So they got to be stay in check, and that's where we, the people, need to step up a bit, and really elect and use our power of voting and hold them in check. And people realize you can call your representatives. You can call your representatives anytime. You can email, call them. And you got to raise this issue. Again, I'm going to the rant again. But
you'll get a form letter in response, but it will be recorded that you said something.
Absolutely. Well, especially
that a constituent gave a crap.
Yeah, and that's the game for politicians, to be honest, for most of them. I mean, look, I love some of them. I mean, we work with some of them. I'm sorry, but a lot of them, it's it's a 2-year cycle or a 4-year. They just want to get reelected. So if you start raising an issue about something, we have the power to stop that. And I don't care if you're the average Joe that works for a major corporation or you are the corporation, right? You got to. I mean, I know a lot of corporations do make their voices heard, but the average person should raise an issue because the trickle down will be real. I mean, if these companies get destroyed or individuals get destroyed by these capital gains and these real estate loopholes, it's going to trickle down big time. Whether it's the major economy or the lack of investments or investments going overseas, it's going to cost a lot of jobs and all. And, I know he's trying to pay for this infrastructure bill and all these things. And look, you and I have talked about this. We need major infrastructure upgrades, big time. But I can guarantee you there's trillions of dollars that we can cut over time in our government's budget easily. And if you grow the economy the right way, without raising taxes, you can pay for that. Just saying. Yeah. I'm just, again, financial literacy.
Well, it's a couple things that have been, the system, the way it is now. If you were to take a snapshot of our economy and our tax laws as they are right now, we are still in a position that will allow the average schmuck to build generational wealth. Okay? And that honestly is part of what we as a country need to be thinking about. It's not just the tangible results that we can see in our lifetimes. I want the overnight Ferrari too. Okay, I'm human.
Oh, that car, by the way, is gorgeous. I don't know if I can fit in it, but it's gorgeous.
I know I can't fit in it, but it's not a want, it's a need. But the fact remains that innovation and investment and building of wealth, it takes time, but the effects are compounding.
Right.
Okay? You can't have a huge shock to the system, like, I don't know, increasing capital gains to 40+% and having a higher tax rate than most socialist countries, and expect it to be beneficial. Okay. And second of all,
I don't want us to turn to France. That scares me.
Well, I don't understand what the hell they expect to accomplish. Okay. Bernie with his Stop Walmart and Stop Bezos bills or whatever the hell he called it.
Guys that create tons of jobs and trickle down positive effects for the economy.
Right. Like what the hell do they think they're going to accomplish? Like, are you seriously going to try and strong arm multinational corporations to play by your rules? I mean, the fact remains that companies have things at their disposal that the average person does not. Okay? Like the ability to relocate somewhere else, to move money offshore. It's not tax evasion, it's tax optimization. And
Right.
plenty of countries would be more than happy to house American corporate money over there, and it collects less percentage wise, but still have it be a huge difference. So you have, with that in mind, you only have two results. Either you have legislative efforts that are completely ineffectual because you can pound your chest and whip your constituents into a frenzy at your rally, but in reality you've done nothing.
Right.
Or you pass legislation that sooner or later is going to screw the same people that voted for you in the first place. Okay, and politicians seem to forget that when there is a hard profit motive. I think what was the last big rage they had a few years ago? It was like a double Irish Dutch sandwich or something like that.
Oh
it,
boy.
it was it
Yeah.
was it was
I know what
some
you're
it was
talking
some
about. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, some operational
Where's Tom when
thing.
we need him? We need
Yeah.
Tom to be part of this podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, like I honestly don't understand all the details behind it, but it's like uh no matter what legislation you put into effect, there's always going to be some way to, for lack of a better term, get around it. There's always going to be a way to
Yeah.
comply with the regulations to your own benefit. And short of having an economy that is completely controlled by the government, and Uncle Sam sets your quotas for the quarter, and it just controls every last aspect of our economic lives, there's no way to actually solve the problem. Okay, and the problem with things like these taxes,
Yeah. There is no utopia.
there is no utopia, but people love to beat their chests and the biggest companies in the world are paying 2% taxes. Well, okay, but what's behind that? 2% when? Is that, are they prepaying quarterly? Is that 2% what was, I don't know, left over? What are they investing into R&D? By the way, they probably issue a bunch of bonds and have that market functioning and humming along. We
They're
can
creating
deduct
jobs. They're putting
interest
money.
expenses. They're
Yeah. They're
creating
putting
jobs. They're
investments in
putting,
communities.
yep, they're building
Whether it's,
infrastructure.
yeah. Yeah.
So it's disingenuous and deceitful to stand on a platform and say these companies are screwing you because they're only paying 2% or 8% or whatever, and you're paying 30, and that's not fair. So we're going to
Yeah.
pass laws that make them pay their fair share. Well, you know what? You're paying 30%, but you have a job because of these companies.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and that's where we got to abolish the nonsense, right? Is the focus really should be at, as you've been saying, is creating more incentives for companies to invest more in this country,
Yep.
and the trickle down effect is creating more jobs, creating more incentives to invest in the communities, and end of the day, you're better off getting that $80,000 job for most Americans, right? Let's say I'm just making a guess of a number average,
Yeah,
$80,000,
yeah,
whatever,
you're way off. Median income is like
whatever.
35 grand.
No. But I'm just saying though, like ranging from, or look at this, you're better at having a company paying, let's say 100,000 people, employees, ranging from $40,000 to millions of dollars, depending on their roles, than having that slashed in half and those
Yeah,
jobs going elsewhere.
yeah,
And maybe they should focus on not only doing that, but also making the dollar stronger. Because when the dollar gets stronger, our buying power gets greater.
yeah,
That $40,000, that $80,000, that $100,000 salary becomes much more powerful. And I think again,
absolutely.
that's where our regulators and our politicians are missing the bat. And I think this is financial literacy again is how about we focus on not increase in taxes, but again, I'm saying this again, create incentives for companies, bring more jobs here, but make the dollar stronger. No
Yeah,
one's talking about that. You and I talk about all the time. I'm like, why are we talking about making our damn dollar stronger? Because the
Sure.
stronger our currency, the more we can freaking buy for that dollar.
Well, yeah.
All of a
Yeah.
sudden that laundry detergent goes from freaking $10 to $2. Things change quite a bit. And
Right.
just real quick, one more point too. I mean, you look back at the days of like, Carnegie Mellon, Rockefeller, all the Henry Ford, people paint them as bad people. They weren't. Actually during those times, to be quite frank, there were, I mean, watch my language, but there's a shit ton of jobs created. They contribute a lot to society, whether it's
Yeah.
education and infrastructure and intellectual property and more. Like we need more of that actually. And yes,
Right.
obviously that no one's perfect, but at least in my eyes, that's as perfect as it gets.
Right. Well, there's yes, and there's
Oh, sorry. One more thing.
huh.
Those Bitcoin mathematicians, whatever the hell
Oh
that they're really
gosh.
good at, maybe they should create a formula in where the minimum wage is calculated in a certain way. Like use that great math you have and calculate a minimum. Create an algorithm and where we can easily plug in things to where we know exactly what the minimum wage would be to live minimally. I
Oh,
mean, I mean,
it's 20
you know,
bucks an hour, Vin.
shut the hell up.
That certainly won't. Yeah, that's certainly not going to
But like,
jump
you know
the.
what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, and that's here's the thing. Like I really think it's a sickness that we have in this country at the political level, where you know we have all of this impetus for social reform, for improvements. Let's harp on infrastructure, since that's the latest debacle.
Hmm.
Yeah, our infrastructure sucks, absolutely terrible. Okay, yes, it needs to be fixed. Yes, fixing it costs money, but we have this sickness where every time we have to fix something, if it's a big enough problem, let's find an excuse to have the federal government just bleed cash into the problem, and let's go raise taxes somewhere else to pay for it. Right?
Yeah.
And
And also, by the
while that,
way, most of that
yeah,
infrastructure bill, based on actual sources that are bipartisan and unbiased,
doesn't go to
the
infrastructure.
no, most of that goes to other things. So just real
Yeah,
quick there, and
yeah,
listeners, go do your research. It's there. Google it.
yeah. But let's just assume a really simple case, right? Yeah, our bridges and roads are atrocious. You know, well, how do we fix them? Well, okay, we can tax the hell out of people and create a bunch of new legislation that we don't need.
And
Or
the
here's an
bridges will still
idea,
take
Vin.
30 years to build.
True. I mean, you're a huge fan of public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
I got two or three people down the road from me that are in construction. One's a structural welder, one's a paver, and the other one's some heavy equipment guy. I don't fully understand what he does. But the point is that we have small businesses in this country that have
Oh
the
yeah.
skills and the equipment to effect these repairs. Here's an idea. How don't you have them bid on government contracts to do this stuff
And a
and
much
cut them
more
a break on
efficient
taxes?
process, by
And
the
it's a
way.
more efficient
Yeah,
process.
not the current process of bidding stuff because I feel like it's like the longest. Like they purposely make it the hardest freaking process possible. But
Right.
that's spot on, Willie. I mean, that's public partnerships are what this country is supposed to be about. Government's not supposed to do everything. Again, I'm not getting into politics, but you're sticking to finance and money here. We have a lot other things to talk about, but we'll probably do another podcast for that. But sticking to finance and economy and what we're talking about in this, you know, you are spot on. You are absolutely spot on about that. I think, public partnerships are exactly what needs to be. Government is there to create incentives. They're there to regulate and to oversee to make sure, and to abolish nonsense amongst dumbasses, right? And
Yeah.
the private side is to partner with the public for their benefit. And I think if we do that, whether it's infrastructure or other matters, I think we'll be far better off. And that, to me, that's, if you're a politician or want to be a politician, listen to this. I think you get a lot of support saying, look, I want to push legislation to create better, efficient, effective processes so that small businesses can bid for projects fairly and get these projects to help rebuild our infrastructure and other things.
Right. I mean, and that's the thing. Like there are multiple ways of
And that doesn't cost
funding.
$4 trillion.
Yeah. I mean, there are multiple ways of funding things. You can buy into muni bonds, which, hey, pay non-taxable interest. That's a great incentive for you. But the simple fact is that government is never going to be as fast and efficient as business because they don't have to be. If you run a business, you know what? Friday's coming whether you want it or not, and if you can't make payroll, you're going to have a lot of pissed off employees. Okay, you need to get stuff done now, and you need to get stuff
Mm-hmm.
done right, and you need to get paid. The government, eh, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. We can print more money. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's no
And dilute the
incentive.
value of the dollar. Yeah.
There's no incentive for government to move fast and operate efficiently, and as a result, they don't, and
Right.
that's not something that is ever likely to change unless we, I don't know, implement something where their pay is tied to how much they get done. Then you can
Yeah.
then you'll see civic
Oh,
action
look,
in
capitalism
turbo
works.
mode. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. People complain all the time about small businesses being hurt and screwed over, etc. But if you don't do anything to help them out and you don't make it easy, because your average small business owner probably does not have an MBA and 20 years in an investment bank. They're focused on what they're doing, and
Yep.
they're focused on meeting payroll, getting projects done, growing the customer base, period. Like they're on the job. All
Yeah.
right. Do not make them jump through a bunch of hurdles and fill out, paperwork in triplicate to get a small business loan. Do not make things harder for them that will force them to take an inordinate amount of time away from what they went into business to do.
Yeah. No, that is quite spot on. And I think, you know, I think what is it? Oh, it's been over 2 hours now. I think we're
Yeah, whatever. We're done when
yeah.
we're done.
Yeah, we're done where we're done, but I think we should wrap up for the first
Sure.
episode. I think there's a lot. We obviously have a lot more to cover, but there'll be another
Yeah, well,
episode next week, right? And I think for our listeners, there's a lot to consume here. Our focus today was the economy and finances, but I think to sum up, I think people need to start empowering themselves to be more independent, start abolishing nonsense, and not only listening on the news and to hear from other people. They need to be more independent. They need to, make their, trust their own instincts from an investment standpoint and do their research. But
yeah.
then also to be more active in, not politics, but, start vocalizing your concerns directly, to the politicians so that, atmospheres are better. But, I'll leave it at that. I mean, I'm going a whole long rant about that. I just
That's
hope
what
our
the next
listeners,
episode's for.
yeah, I just hope our listeners, have learned something, got some laughs, and I hope our insights have helped. But what final words do you have, Willie?
Honestly, it's just lifelong philosophy. In one of my negotiation classes in business school, the prof actually hit on something really good that I think is a good philosophy to apply to life. Nobody's ever going to negotiate you up. Okay, you're
Right.
never going to get more than you ask for. You kind of have to fight for every scrap that you get. So don't sell yourself short, and realize that nobody is going to do it for you. So if you want to improve something of your life financially, socially, whatever, just do it and screw up and learn from it. And over time, you will start to suck less. And
Yeah.
that hurts when you take a bath on your investments, but guess what? The market will be back up tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. So don't be a short-term idiot. All right. Don't be a smooth brain, and
Yep.
just kind of act from a standpoint of logic and reason, and realize that no, no one's going to force you to do it to better yourself. You got to do it on your own.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That is the wisest advice. We'll end on that. The only thing I can add to that is also don't blame others as well. Look at yourself in the mirror, and and don't be afraid to do stuff. Just do it. That's
Yep.
why I love Nike. Hey Nike, you want to do an ad?
Oh, God.
Joking.
Shameless.
All right. Well, I am spineless. Well, take care,
All right.
everybody. Hopefully you
Thanks for
enjoyed.
letting us waste your time. Bye-bye.